to yet another exciting season of our community podcast series, Season 9. This season, we get an opportunity to profile art practitioners in Uganda, Mali, Rwanda, and Cote d'Ivoire. We speak to them about how they have contributed to the growth and well-being of their communities using their talent and skills for philanthropy. Thank you for joining us.
I am Lena Godfrey Lokwang. I come from Kaabong, and I am married with 8 children, 4 sons and 6 beautiful daughters. I started studying to be a priest for the last 33 years. And then many are called, few are chosen. I think I was called for another vocation. Sure. And I was able to interact with Caritas Cotido, where I worked for 7 years as a programs person in the programs department. I ascended up to a level of programs manager, deputy director. But I came into contact with serving the community, giving my time, offering my skill, and teaching them generosity. And I am inspired by a priest, the late Father Larry Gokoria. He's one of those who has helped me to know the value of giving without demanding. And so when I give my time, when I give anything I have, when I give to those in need, I feel happy that something is trickling down. I also encourage those I meet that it is in sharing that you get more blessings. And this can be a little bit tough in our community where everybody almost is in need. But for those I've reached and worked with, they are able to give. Our culture is generous. As much as dowry is tough to marry, but there is this generous aspect. You don't need to have 100 cows to marry, but 100 cows will come immediately you marry. And they will also come depending on how you have also given. Because when somebody is in need, you offer, it remains as a trickle-down effect. It remains as a radiated influence to the community. So sometimes having so many friends who give, who receive, continue to impact this aspect. So as I worked with the Caritas Cotido, I came into real contact with the value of giving. After one time, there was a couple in Cotido, in Lokomiebu. After we had given them cows, we had given them some goats, and then we supported them as a couple. And then this one lady called Shilameri came to me and told me, but I want to come and visit you. So when she came where I was, she said, but you are more poor than I am, and yet you are here trying to help me. But now I don't need that help. I've realized I can now be you in the community. I will start from my own household. My co-wife has stubborn children, but she's not able to help them. I will take them to school. So she took 3 of our co-wife's children to school. And after 2 years, she gave me a calf. I said, why are you giving? It will be bribery. Say, no, you told us it's good to give. So I first have to give you. I have seen you are also needy. I said, oh God. And I received it. And then later on I used it for plowing. And that plowing I continued also to help others to plow, those who did not have. Because I saw this sense of when you receive with joy, it stays. And all the rest of the animals are being stolen, raided. But this one has not been raided. Maybe because the heart at which it was given, the value at which I use it is the one that is keeping it. And I continue to teach my children in the neighborhood the value of sharing. And a little thing I take bread, a loaf of bread or so, they're able to share with the neighbors. And I always teach them, share without demanding. Because sometimes there is this revenge approach in a child. You give me, I give you. You don't give me, the next time I get, I don't. But mine, I've learned to just give. Because they know, when I give, I will get. And it's a generation that we want to support. The value of sharing. Sharing is virtue. When you share, probably God enlarges the avenues in which you get what you share. When you share with love, inspired by the spirit of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, you give with love, it comes back 1,000-fold. And probably the few things, small things I I do is because of that. So after 7 years, I went to Center for Conflict Resolution. This is a peace-building organization, and I saw my place needs more peace. It is so needy in terms of peace. Everything, it has 3 levels of guns. The loud gun, insecurity, robbery, raiding, elopement, which is violent, and gender-based violence. These are all the needs that our community is suffering from. And then another one is the silent gun. Our community has resorted to alcoholism as a coping mechanism, and yet it is killing so many of them. Then the final one is poverty of the mind. Sometimes relegated to we are marginalized, we don't have anything, and yet we are so rich. But so my charity starts from there. How can we restore peace? Start with yourself. Are you peaceful? Do you treat yourself well? How will you now take it to a neighbor? Start. Don't go and donate elsewhere when you have just a neighbor next to you that lacks salt, that lacks a clothes, that lacks even light, even water.
Very true.
And then eventually give skill. And I've loved recently when I met Kwanyasha at Farm. That just came and said, no, we want to give grass. What are you saying? We worked on a development program that told us, let's stop giving. Because giving is creating a lot of dependency. But I think I saw the way they have transformed a few members in my community by giving whatever they have to help them with their skill. And those ones who get it continue to give to others. That has inspired me a great deal. And I want to pray that we continue with this in mind, the heart of giving. Blessed is the one that gives. That's what Lucky Dube says. Than the one that receives. But I also say, also receive when it is being given.
Yes.
Just like the other woman. If I had refused, it would look an abuse. But we need to coexist. When I'm needy, it's good to express the need. And then the other person who has exercises the charity. Suppose we always receive, give and give and give. I think so. That is what I encourage the rest of Ugandans, people of God, that when you give, you get 1,000-fold. And when you give unconditionally. When you give the best.
Sure.
That one, because if you have to multiply something, if you give the worst, you multiply it, it will be bad. But when you give the best and it multiplies, it comes to you with joy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us your generosity journey. One question. I heard you mention in your interview about your neighbor. Start with your neighbor. Could you please explain more for our listeners what it means to start with your neighbor in Kaabong, in a place where you stay, in a community that always needs and yet already has much? What does starting with your neighbor mean?
My neighbor in the first place is anybody I regularly come into contact with, starting from the workplace and then to the place of residence, and also sometimes to the place of recreation. You realize there is always this neighbor that would wish to have a happy life, but because of one thing or another, you find the person is not able. So for me, I feel a neighbor comes from this Greek word envirion, which means environment. Now, if my environment is needy, I will fall into the needy environment. If it is not peaceful, I will be unpeaceful. So, by ensuring that my neighbor, my environment is at least having the minimum, if I had a little bit more, we share. Even if if I don't have more, I learn to respect and share. I start at home. If I have had a meal and it's a little bit excess, I've always taught my children never ever to pour when there is one other person who could benefit out of it. I've also taught them that when you are eating, don't eat when another person is just there watching at you. Just share. And I've learned a lot with that. Sometimes I go for work, my madam goes for other things, children are left at home. You can imagine, but you get them happy. They have eaten. I don't know where from. When you ask, so and so, I have friends, I have this and that. So it's a way of helping a generation to appreciate that you start charity where you are and start inculcating skills of charity, right, to our own children. Probably if we did this to our Karamoja for the next 20 years, the crime of grabbing, stealing, rustling might easily die.
It's very true.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing with us that wonderful insight about starting with your neighbor. Give to your neighbor first, the person next to you, and then in turn that person will also give to another person.
Sure.
So the other thing I would like to conclude with, you shared that there's so many people in your community that have been changed by generosity, by different projects that have given to them. Could you just share with us one story of that one person that you see their life has really changed because of generosity in your community? Just that one person.
I want to share the story of one cattle rustler, Namoy Ebokot, Namoy Peter Ebokot, who came into contact with a priest, and then later on came into contact with our program called the Youth Peace Champions. This young man, in the beginning, was robbing, raiding, who could not spare somebody's animal and any other thing, even chicken. But I think one day he went for prayers in Panyangara Parish, and he was told this: love your neighbor, do to others what you would want them do to you. And then he said, but what is this man talking about? So later on he told me, he went to a priest, he told him how he had lost so many friends out of robbing and this and that. And the priest told him, you will also go the same way if you don't change. And so, but he said, but how can I change when I have nothing? He said, you have so many things. You even have the cows you already robbed. That is the biggest thing.
It's true.
So this young man reflected, and they decided to form a youth group called Come Back from the Bush. Come back from robbing. Come back, and we stay and we see how to give back. Now, when we gave these people some project, weaving project, they could make capes, supported them with the cereal banking. They are able to call back the rest. For me, that is giving. They call, they give something to do, and I have seen about 5 of them weaving capes unconditional anywhere. They are passionate and they sell, and they no longer go to do that. And I have seen this young man from time to time go with these people he has transformed to give back to the community in terms of centralization, peace building. That for me is so, because that is the need we now want in our place. It is more urgent than ever. If this man was selfish, he wouldn't call a group of all those other people that have to come back from the bush, that have to create peace in the community. For me, I celebrate him. I always continue to engage him. I always continue to talk to him. And I think it's this person that has taken the other side of life, the exact opposite, the pole of soul. And that's for me is a giving. From grabbing to giving a skill, to giving advice, to transforming the fellow warriors. That for me is good.
Thank you very much for sharing that story with us, because it shows the ethos of giving, that when you give, it is multiplied. When you give, it creates passion and a livelihood for another person.
Yeah.
When you give, you're only not giving to yourself, but you're giving to someone who will multiply and multiply and multiply. So thank you so much, Mr. Godfrey, for sharing with our community podcast audience this wonderful story of giving. We look forward to sharing more stories about your community, about how generosity has changed the people in your community, and those inspiring individuals that are continually giving to their community and they're not expecting anything in return.
Exactly.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Join us for our next episode as we continue to talk about how different artists and creatives are giving back to their communities. We hope that you have been inspired to give of your time, treasure, and talent when it comes to philanthropy within your own community.